Greetings everyone, Fro here. Welcome to the demo today. In today's demo, we're going to be looking at the tool Gretel.ai. Gretel is a modern data tool that helps with generating synthetic or fake data sets to use for data science, for testing, for machine learning. The challenge of getting data sets to use in your lower environment is not as easy as copying production down into your lower environment due to the regulatory landscape that typically is not acceptable. And so companies always have to go out to find ways of masking or generating synthetic data that mimics production, but it's not production data. So you can use that in lower environments for training. There are simple and a little bit more naive ways to look at this, where you can generate tons and tons of data. For example, I use Mockery, which generates fake data. So here you can put in first name, last name, gender, fields like social security. It does a pretty good job of generating data sets that looks like real data. Frankly, you can use this. But the challenge and the shortcoming with this approach is it doesn't account for the analytical value of your data set. So if you're trying to train a machine learning model for your customers and their buying habits, generating a bunch of strings that looks like customers would not be helpful when training a machine learning model or when doing data science. You want data that represents your data set, but it's not your data set. And this is where AI and tool like Gretel comes into play. There are a lot of players in this space. So for today, let's dive right in and we're going to sign in into Gretel.ai. It's a cloud-based service. Once you log in, it brings us to a screen that looks like this, a very clean UI. To the left is a dashboard, an API key, meaning you can interact at this using the REST API. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Now below are projects, and on the far right side is a user profile with some documentation also available. So let's jump into projects. I did create one a little bit earlier for the sake of the demo. To create a new project, we're just going to go ahead and click on project. We should have a new project created. All right, with the project created, I'm going to go back to my existing project. In here is where we get to do the training of the models based on existing data set. So for one, you can connect using your API key and generate that. Otherwise, you can create a brand new model as such. So once you create a new model, you can either generate synthetic data, classify and label, or transform existing data set. The examples I have would focus on the first two. So what does generate synthetic data mean? In this model, you're going to train a model providing an existing data set, and that model would then predict or generate data based on that training. Same with classify. In this model, you're going to provide an existing data set with some sensitive data potentially, and it's going to classify based on the sensitivity of that. So here, let's go ahead and choose a file for this. I do have some mock data generated from Mockery previously, and we're going to upload this file and continue. Here is where it tells us the fields that it's working with, the number of records in the file, a very small file, and more configs for the training. And now we can begin the training. As part of the training, you can also select the model you want to train. So let's go back to my existing model I trained a little bit earlier. These are the models I've trained and some are still actually training. So let's click on this specific model where I trained this model using the default config. And you can see the configuration for this that was used for this model. And this is generating synthetic data. This is the source file we're using, the mock data. And these are the fields for the specific configurations for this training, the batch size, and some of the hyperparameters. Here in activities, we can see the history of the training. It takes a few seconds. Here we can see the details. Now, once the training completes, because we're training to synthesize data, you can get some information around the training and the model log that was used in that training. And then here is the data that has been synthesized based on the training we've done. So if I go ahead and I click on this, I can download the results. Instead of downloading 5,000 results, let's go ahead and download 1,000 so we can do a test. Now, each time I'm downloading these result sets, This is not real data. This is data that has been synthesized based on the model that was trained on my existing data set. Let's download 1,000 customers here, and we're going to take a look at the result. Once I hit generate, it's going to generate that based on the model. So it takes a few seconds for that to happen. Once the file is ready, I'm going to go ahead and download that. And this is what the generated data looks like. Completely synthesized record that looks like production, mimics production, but it's not production. So let's go ahead and copy this over into a Google Sheet so we can explore. And you can see we still have all the columns we expected to use for machine learning or for the data science. ID, first name, last name, email, gender, social security, and the security team might scream at us using social security for developing in the lower environments. But guess what? If we go back into the previous data set, this social security will work with, and this is the previous data set I generated. This is the mock data. This is what we started with to train a machine learning model, 1,000 records. You can see the first name here is Thibault and Junior and Loline and Karen. If you go into a synthetic data, those names look nothing like this. The IDs too have been synthesized. So social security is not real. This is not made up. You cannot tie this to a particular individual. From a privacy perspective, you can think about meeting your privacy needs with a solution like this. You might say, how is this different than just me using Python to just make up strings? It's a little bit different. By mocking up this data, you get data that represents your actual data. So this is the synthetic data, and my actual data is the mock data. But you can use this synthetic data for analytics and be guaranteed that you're not going to be violating any privacy needs. I know I'm just scratching on the surface here, but tools like this is the space in which they play, and these are the problems they're looking to solve. Using AI and machine learning to train models based on existing data set so they can go ahead and generate new data sets that you can use in a secure and in a safe way. This is also beautiful because if it's tedious for you coming in here and constantly generating files and uploading files into your data platform, like Snowflake or some other system, you can interact using the API. So you can go ahead and generate the API key. You can read the API documentation. There is a sample code in here for how to call that. As a matter of fact, I did bring that into Python and was walking through that exercise that it has. This will be a separate video I might look at doing, but you can certainly interact using the Gretel client by API, where you have workflows that can get data as it's coming in into your production environment, calling this API to synthesize new data set. And then that's what you're using to refresh your lower environment. So an interesting tool, an interesting capability in the modern data space. Check it out, Gretel.ai, a developer stack for generating synthetic data. As always, hopefully this was helpful to you. Thanks for watching. This has been Fro. I'll see you in the next demo.